Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I am Trinity Korth, Solutions Advisor for Financial Services and other organizations for the Center for Professional and Executive Development. I'm excited to have you with us here today and have Lisa join us. Before I introduce Lisa, I'd like to share a few words about the Wisconsin School Business Center for Professional and Executive Development, also known as CPED. CPED offers programs and certificates that will give you the modern, relevant skills needed to advance your career. All of our programs offer interactive learning sessions facilitated by instructors with practical business experience. CPED also partners with organizations to provide customized professional development programs, coaching, and consulting. For more information on the Center for Professional and Executive Development, please visit our website at uwcped.org. If you have any questions you'd like to ask during today's webinar, you can submit those questions using either the chat or the Q&A buttons on the bottom of the Zoom webinar screen. We will pose all questions that are submitted during the Q&A at the end of today's webinar. I also want to mention that today's webinar is being recorded, and a link of the recording will be made available within the next few days. Now I'd like to share a little bit with you about Lisa before I hand things over to her. Lisa has just celebrated her 10th anniversary at UW-Madison Center for Professional and Executive Development. We're so honored to have that. Thanks, Lisa. She oversees teaches and coaches in our Leadership Beyond Management and Transition to Executive Management programs. Lisa has a bachelor's in business from Indiana University, an MBA from Southern Methodist University, and both a Master's of Liberal Arts and a Leadership Certificate from the University of Chicago. Her business experience is from a variety of industries. Again, thank you so much for joining us, Lisa, and I'll hand things over to you.
Thank you, Trinity. Hey, everyone. I'm so glad to have an opportunity to spend a few minutes with you today. I appreciate you taking a moment to think about your development. And as we start the year off, to think about how do you want to spend this year in a way that you are going to be a more impactful, a bigger contributor, a more satisfied leader a year from now. So as Trinity was saying, we're from the Center for Professional and Executive Development, and you'll see that it's our noble why is aimed at helping organizations move forward. And that includes fostering individual growth. So we have many, many people who come through what we affectionately call CPED, in order to find out how they can grow and in what ways can they grow. So we partner heavily with people who are interested in development. Just a little bit more about me. As Trinity said, I'm a program director for the Center for Professional and Executive Development. I also am a section leader with the Graduate School of Banking, which is also based in Madison and an organization with which we have a strategic partnership. I was with the Graduate School of Banking last week. That picture there of me is, the smile is capturing how happy I was to be out of the Chicago area and getting a little bit of sunshine and warmth. I'm a community leader in that I'm on our local school board and I co-chair our finance and facilities committee. So that's where a lot of growth is happening for me in my career. I also happen to be a human, dog, and gecko parent. And my biggest advice for you there is know that geckos live sometimes to be 20 years old. So it's a long haul with raising a gecko. All right, so right now we're going to have a poll jump up here. So this is a question about New Year's resolution. Since we're starting here talking about development, how long do you all think the average New Year's resolution lasts? Through January 2nd, which is not lasting at all, January 30th, which is right now in that first month, about 4 months, or about 6 months? What do you think? All right, most people said around January 30th. According to Forbes 2024 research on resolutions, it's actually about 4 months. But they also say that when they look at how many people are still doing their intentions a year out, it's 6%. So what we're going to do today is we are going to talk about how can we really think about your growth in a way that's intentional it's forward looking, but it's also focused on those things that are really important to you, those things that are worth committing to, so that you can keep that focus throughout the year and beyond. And we're going to give you some ideas for your leadership development plan. As you think about where do you want to spend your time, I'm going to share with you some of the insights I have working with hundreds of leaders every year. So here's another poll for you. Given the state of your development goals, would you say, I haven't felt a need to write down my development goals? I know I should write down some goals, but don't seem to find the time. My organization requires a development plan on file, but mine's a bit dusty. Or I have a written development plan that is updated, active, and inspiring. All right, here are our results. Goodness, over half of you say, I know I should write down some goals, but don't seem to find the time. We also have some who feel like they do have a development plan on file, but it's dusty. And we have some of you here who have a written development plan that you do feel is updated, active, inspiring. That's terrific. Well, you can imagine, given the work that we do have a point of view that having a development plan is important. Having a written development plan is important. Having one that where you work with others and talk about how they can support you, and it is also important. So we're going to talk about what are those things that might be so compelling you'd be interested in spending time writing down a few goals. And mind you, it's going to just be a few goals that we're going to advise you to do. As I think about one of the most valuable concepts that helps leaders to think differently about their development, it is this concept by Carol Dweck called mindset. And this is a book, or I've listened to it on videotape or audio tape that really has had an impact on me. But what Carol Dweck has found, she's a researcher who was studying academia, and she was studying education, and she was asking the question, why do some students get frustrated and quit and not continue to learn more information, whereas other students are striving to continue to overcome obstacles and persist? And what she found is that there are different mindsets that we have, different assumptions that we have about intelligence and growth and mastering things. And since she came out with this information, it's working its way through education across the country, but it's also been found to be really true for adults as well. And that is, to what extent are we spending time thinking about our performance in a very fixed way, in that we need to be seen as having the answers. We need to demonstrate mastery early and often. We need to be seen as being fully developed, as opposed to assumptions around intelligence that are more fluid, and that you gain information as you grow and develop, and therefore we're on a journey. So it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to take chances and maybe not succeed at everything the first time, and then learn from that and grow. And what you're seeing here are two sides of a brain that show us that as we're learning more about how the brain works and the neuroscience of learning and growth, we're finding that when people are in that fixed mindset, the brain is more static. When they're in that growth mindset and open to new information and new skills and learning and not experiencing mastery from the beginning, then their brains come alive with interest and growth and inquiry. So when we are working with leaders, this is the success factor when it comes to thinking about, how do I want to proactively manage my growth? How do I want to be able to display that I'm learning something new with intention? All right, so we're going to talk a little bit here about how you can think about maybe some new ideas to refresh your thinking about your development. We're going to talk about driving skills that matter. We're going to talk a little bit about emotional intelligence. We're going to talk about creating capacity, and we're going to be talking about thinking more broadly. So when it comes to thinking about how to approach your development goals, you can certainly think about your role in terms of what are the technical skills required for your role? And are there some things you want to get exposure to or experience with or training on that can help you feel like you're fulfilling technical skills within the role? We encourage you to look at that and see if there are some goals you want to set around that, but also think about something more. In addition to the technical skills for your current role, think beyond that. How can you think about broadening your experience and your knowledge by taking on projects or opportunities that require some stretch in terms of technical skills? And here's where we really start to see elevation in leadership is in the competencies. Here are four that we see time and time again are the ones where leaders have an opportunity to grow in these areas in order to elevate their contribution. Strategic thinking. Strategic thinking is about thinking bigger picture, thinking beyond the current, thinking directionally, taking into consideration macroeconomic trends, dynamics, thinking about competitively differentiating your offer or fulfilling your organization's mission or their service goals, whatever it is, but thinking at a higher level. So this is one competency that might be one that you could benefit from and set some goals to help you talk with others, do research, look beyond the current. The next one, dealing with ambiguity. When we're talking about leadership, we're talking about being on that cusp between what's already now, the current, and what's being created for the future. With that comes a lot of ambiguity. There's lack of direction from above. There's still people figuring out what's next and what does that look like and how do we make the vision or direction from our leaders come to fruition? How do we bring that into reality? So recognizing that it is a part of the job in leadership to have ambiguity helps you to understand that that's a competency that is worth working on. How do I become more comfortable with me and my peers or my leaders not having all the answers yet? And how do we contribute to a conversation about that? Leading inclusively. There is no one individual role or one individual function that can see everything about an organization and it's the people it serves. So we need as leaders to recognize how do we open up the communications? How do we open up lines of communication so that we can understand others' perspectives, understand how perspectives are changing of those people we serve, our clients or our customers. So leading inclusively is about opening up to how do we get the perspectives at the table in the conversation. For some of you, that might be a key way that you can increase your competencies and therefore your leadership. And then another one that is often an area where people want to invest is in partnering, thinking beyond the current people they need to spend time with in order to deliver their current services, to how do I partner with others, reach across boundaries, create new connections, find new common goals. All of that is a really rich place in terms of increasing your impact and elevating your leadership. So a question for you to ponder now, and as you're thinking about your goals for this year, how can your goals be enhanced to expand your leadership development growth and your leadership span of influence? The next topic here is thinking about how to increase our emotional intelligence. There are a number of ways in which people approach emotional intelligence, and with intention, this can be really a valuable place for people to invest and focus for their development. We're looking now at information from Daniel Goleman and how he has defined emotional intelligence. It has several factors. One is self-awareness. Are you aware of yourself? Do you have a high level of attention to your own thoughts and how you experience things, your own sense of purpose? And there's self-management. How is that manifested in behaviors that others see? Then there's social awareness, which is, am I aware of what's going around with others? Do I demonstrate empathy? Do I demonstrate awareness of the organization? And then how do I respond to that in terms of managing relationships? So there are a number of things you can do here. In a formal way, you can take an assessment. There are many assessments that get at different aspects of emotional intelligence. We support and encourage a wide variety of assessments. The ones we often use are from human synergistics. Those assessments really get at motivation and can help with self-awareness. But really, any assessment that can help you get more information would be valuable. But we also really, really encourage you to get feedback in an informal way. How do you request and ask others to help you identify how you're thinking and how you're behaving in order to increase your self-awareness and your relationship awareness? So this could be an area where your goals that you currently have or ones that you want to set for this year could be enhanced if you think about how emotional intelligence could help you connect with others, could help you lead more, could help you be more of an intentional visionary leader. We're also thinking about how do you create capacity? Goodness knows we're all busy. We have things that pull at us all the time. So how do we, with intention, determine how we can find some space in order to show up in a higher impact sort of way? One thing is focus. Be intentional and thoughtful about when are you getting too spread out? When are you and your team focusing on too many things? Determine what are the most important things and negotiate the others. Second, think about skills gaps of yourself and others in terms of how do I build a system that's capable of more than it is now, so that as we're going through this year, we're going to have more capacity, better productivity, better growth as part of people being a part of that process. Think about the system and what it's producing and how it can produce more next year than it's doing now. That can help you focus on where to invest over this next year. Another place to look for capacity is in delegation. And we're not talking about just having people do things. We're talking about real delegation where we empower them. We help them understand the expectations, the standards, how they need to grow to fulfill those. We demonstrate trust. We're there to support them when they need to learn from mistakes. What we advise people who are trying to increase their leadership to do is to think about how do I enable people, but also touch base with their work at just the right times so that we make sure that we're mitigating the risk. We're looking at how do we not be the center cog of the wheel and own all the approvals, but how do we step into a system or a process in a way that we can be supportive, we can mitigate the risk of something going wrong. And by doing so, if we are protecting the organization and the individual from a risk perspective, we then can step back and allow more autonomy. So be thinking about whether this is a place where you are able to set some goals that can help you to build the system and really demonstrate true delegation that can increase and be negotiated over time. And consider succession. If you're someone who's thinking about how you want to move on to a broader or a higher level role, make this year one where you're delegating in a way that you are helping others to learn how to share your perspective and your standards and your ability to grow and develop others. So these goals may be ones that are worth some focus from you. How do you not only think about how you want to grow, but how are you going to create more capacity for you so that you can operate at a higher level and that you can take on more? Another way to think about things is how broadly are you impacting the organization? Are you thinking in terms of your function? Are you thinking more broadly in terms of interacting with other functions or at the highest level? So functional leaders are ones who are focusing on the output of themselves or their team or their particular function. So thinking about that provides focus that can help you to manage processes and outputs and services and improve those over time. And if you're thinking at a higher level, You can think beyond that function and how do you make time for, make capacity so that you can reach across the functions in order to really focus on those internal and external partners, where the handoffs are, how the functions are working together to support each other. How do you collectively own the talent and the capacity and the capability beyond just your area of expertise? And then the highest level are enterprise leaders. So they are thinking functionally and cross-functionally, but they're also looking at the system as a whole. They're thinking about how does the system as a whole develop compared to where it needs to be or its potential productivity, but also how does it continue to grow in the direction it needs to in order to have that competitive differentiator or fulfill the mission or be prepared for some other strategic goal. So this could be an area where you look at this and say, you know what, I want to go into this year with some intention that I'm going to start influencing more broadly, creating partnerships with others to understand the system in a broader way. So you can be thinking about your scope. Now let's talk about, once you have determined what it is you want to work on, how do you focus on the goals? As I said before, I encourage just a few goals. Definitely encourage that you write them down, that you write them in goal form with a SMART analogy. That's SMART. You can find that online. So if you're focusing on just a few things, then in terms of keeping the momentum going, make sure that you get in touch with your motivation. What is your why on why these are the important things that you want to do over the next year? How do you want to invest? Secondly, put some things in to help support you. Give yourself lots of aids or ideas, like checking in on a monthly basis, going for a coffee with yourself to review your goals and how it's going. Lots of reminders, things on the calendar. Really over predict your outcomes in terms of those few goals. And then this is the most important one. The people I work with, they tend to really underutilize asking others, and not just asking others for input, but very specifically asking for input on those goals. So I talk to leaders all the time who say they feel good because they are talking to others around them and saying, what else can I do to serve you? What else can I do to support you? How can I be helpful? And I think that's great. It is demonstrating an interest in growing and developing others. But what's even better when we're talking about how to continue to grow is to enlist others very specifically, like what we have here. I'm looking to increase how often I do this thing. As someone who sees me in action, I would really appreciate it if you can let me know when you see me doing it, or even when I miss opportunities to do that. And I really appreciate your help in helping me grow. This is doing several things. It's asking for specific feedback. It's asking for, it's opening the table for saying, I really want to grow in this way. And it's demonstrating that growth mindset to others. So here's a question for you to contemplate is, what are you willing to commit to stay on target with those goals and to make sure they have momentum throughout the year? And so let's kind of summarize here. Be thinking about where you're going. Start with the horizon in mind. So when you think about what's the next year hold for us, what's the next year hold for me, then consider where your development focus will provide you the most growth and development. Where is it really worth focusing? Put on that growth mindset. Be thinking about, how do I look at this journey? How do I think about, for myself and others, growing and creating more capability, more skills, more perspective, more connection? And then set a few goals and a plan to support them. Share them with others and hold yourself accountable for them. So those are my tips and tidbits for the day. I'll hand this back to Trinity.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was amazing as usual, and I appreciate the suggestion you shared. Before we hop into questions, I did want to let individuals know about CPED's upcoming leadership development programs. CPED offers several professional development programs to help you advance your skills and gain new tools to grow for your organization's specific needs. You can learn more about these and other upcoming leadership development programs at go.wisc.edu/management/CPED. There's a mouthful. Well, let's go ahead and hop into some Q&As. And I did see a couple in here, so let me grab some. All right. Based on your experience, is there one particular area that business executive leaders could benefit from the most as part of their executive development?
Thank you for the question, Bob. Yes, it is my opinion, there, I would encourage you to ask others this question as well around you, because I think that that's part of the conversation that we should be having about how we develop as leaders, especially at the executive level. And my advice here is that if you are growing in a way that you are gaining perspectives of others about the organization, both your peers, as well as your function, the leaders in your organization, people outside of or customers of the organization, that is in my opinion, the biggest opportunity you have for understanding how you can contribute as an executive. Because you want to be thinking at that enterprise level, you want to be thinking macro trends and whatever skills or capacity your organization needs to do. So I would encourage you to look at your calendar and decide, how much time do I want to spend running the business, and how much time can I make to expand my perspective and find common goals and agendas with others.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
How would you distinguish the primary difference between executive management capabilities versus executive leadership skills? I think you touched on it a bit, but go ahead.
Yes. Well, we talk about how important it is that we have both of those things when we look at our executives. Our executives, I would hope, would have an opinion about, have a point of view about how well the organization is being managed. Is the organization being clear about expectations, understanding how the people in it can grow, how they can set goals and give feedback, making sure the organization is running well. So that's thinking about it from an executive perspective, is how is the organization as a whole doing, and how can we help it continue to grow in terms of its productivity and its capability. And executive leadership is also contributing to the conversation about where does it need to be going? How do we fulfill our strategic intentions? How do we grow with intention and purpose as a whole?
Great, thank you. Let's see here. I really like my manager, but he seems uncomfortable talking about my growth. How might I approach him?
I do hear often that people are concerned because their manager or leader expresses discomfort, because oftentimes that individual doesn't feel like they have a role to offer you. They don't feel like they have the next thing in line. So they get a little hesitant talking about career development and growth. That said, talking to your manager or leader in terms of how you want to grow in a broadening way. How do you want to get exposure? How do you want to take on responsibility? How do you want to get more visibility? That can be really helpful. And usually your manager will respond to requests like that.
Sounds great. And I have one more, which looks like it'll be the perfect amount of time to finish up. My company rewards always having the answer. It causes stress for me and my team and works against delegation and empowerment. Where should I start with that?
When it comes to that kind of technical knowledge and technical expertise being valued, what you have as an opportunity to do in your growth is to acknowledge that this is getting to that growth mindset, that you don't have the answer, or that you can get a good answer, or that you want to check with your team and start to work against that culture, but do so in a way where you're confident that you are demonstrating that your team does know what it needs to know. And it's okay that they don't have an answer for everything. And that's something that is you as a leader accept, and you expect the others around you to also appreciate that. Once you continue to do that over time and show your technical capability, your the other leaders will respond accordingly, and you will be influencing your culture in a productive, positive way.
I love that. Thank you so much, Lisa, for that great resource and information. I hope everyone enjoyed today. Again, keep an eye out for the email of this recording, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.